Welcome to this session. My name is Fredrik Moeschlin, and I will present to you how to enable business insights with the right EA. And first, before I start, I would like to ask you, how many here are architects in some sense, or have been working as architects in some sense? Okay, that's great. You might have noticed I didn't raise my hand. So I'm not an architect. You are the experts here. And we do have architects at Findwise, but I was asked to come here to present this because I come from the analytics perspective, or the AI perspective, or the advanced analytics, whatever you call it. And I would like to give you my take on what I need on the architectural level to make analytics happen. So bear with me if I'm not an expert in information management and a similar field. So I'm actually a physics engineer, and this is my background. And I've been working with things like this for quite some time, that's automating, and particularly vehicles, on another coast of Sweden. But we are consultants, and I've been working as a consultant for 10 years, mainly abroad in Europe. Been stationed in Zurich in Switzerland, working with introducing machine learning, AI, similar things in different industries. And we talk about typically insurance, banking, automotive, other fields, and there's a lot happening, and you might know it in your areas as well, and we have seen it in the previous presentations. And what I think is interesting is there's quite a different perspective when you come from that direction. You want to drive the business, you want to enable new business with those techniques. At the moment, machine learning really hyped, and particularly deep learning. So I think this is what we're all after. But when you come there, when you want to get started, it typically looks like this. A number of, in this case, books. It could be files or databases or whatever. And they are arranged in a way that may or may not be optimal for what you want to do, right? So you need to get this happening. And so the question we are faced with very often is, how do you go from this sort of unstructured way to this, where you provide new solutions? Things are automated. Let this picture symbolize AI. And so I'd like to show you my thoughts here, and it's about a hierarchy of needs. And I think you know about Maslow, who introduced the hierarchy of needs for human beings. And he talks about, okay, you need security. If you don't have security, you're not interested in love or food or similar things, because you need to get secure first. You don't want to die, right? And when you're secure, then you might be hungry. You might need food. And before you've gotten that food, you're not interested in getting to know people, right? You want to have that first. And you have those different levels that you need to pass. And the first step that we work with here is, before you can do anything significantly in direction machine learning or AI, you need to get it sorted. And like Staffan said, you don't need to get everything sorted, but you need to get something sorted that you can work with. And once you have that done, you can start extracting knowledge. And that's where people talk about self-service BI today, extracting information, graphics, producing simple products, who benefit on the information. And once you have that information, you can start transforming your business. And now we talk about introducing machine learning, introducing more sophisticated, maybe cognitive solutions, where you gain insights that you transform the way you work with. And there's also a need that you haven't. Finally, we have automation, where you realize, okay, now I can start automating things. I don't need to do everything on my own. And you should also think about automating the automation, so that in Seth's case, that those machine learning models that are implemented, you don't need to have the data scientists implementing them over and over again. Rather, they adapt to the new circumstances. They detect the new features that you might want to bring in. I mean, that's the ideal case. We are not there yet. So this is what I will talk about now, and I will try to give you some examples also, what we do, in this case, to make this happen on different levels. And you're welcome to interrupt me with questions or thoughts or anything. So the first step, sort out the mess. Where do we start? So it's obvious, before we start thinking about it, we are creating mess continuously. And these curves, there are millions of curves like this, where you see, in this case, the amount of information on Earth, zettabytes, exponential growth. We have Moore's law as well, which is more or less fulfilled. But not to forget the tools. We talked about open source tools. Everything you do should have open source as the core. And the development of open source is extreme, I think. There's really a lot happening every day. So maybe Jupyter or another tool might be legacy in a year or two. We don't know. But we need to keep this in mind, that this is affecting everything we do. Information is increasing. The capacity of managing and storing that information is also increasing. And the tools to make it happen, they develop rapid. And it's not linear, it's much faster. And what you realize then is that, okay, what makes us unique? What is our skill set, so to speak? It's not the tools, it's not the data growth or the volume. It's rather the way that we capitalize on this information, the way we make our business continuously work in this direction. And that's what I realize also as a consultant, that it's not about being the best at one particular tool. And we have this picture, right? I think you have seen it before. This is what you meet when you go to a new organization and you want to make things happen. You realize, okay, we need to tap into this silo and that silo, and do we have any plan for this, or do we just do it quickly to make it happen? Depends on. And it's not about just information silos, it's about organizational silos and cultural silos, geographical silos, and so on. And talking about organization, this is one way of, if I'm stealing your data lake, Staffan, people might look at it differently. I don't know if you've seen this picture before, but looking at an elephant, if you're blind, if you can't see it, you can just touch it. Depending on where you come from or what you notice, you will see different things. It's a spear, if you look at it, or this is a huge fan that I'm seeing. You need someone to give you the whole picture. They need to communicate, they need to share their understandings. And more or less what you need is some sort of content plan. And that's what I always say when I do something with analytics that involves data from several sources or several regions or several organizational units. Do you have any sort of plan that you can share with me that will save us a lot of time? I don't know if you heard that in data science, in analytics, 80% of the time is spent crunching data. It's probably even more, I think. What do you say, Stefan? You agree? So depends on the project, depends on the situation. And that's where you shouldn't waste your data scientist's time, right? And if you have a content plan, or if there's even someone with a map, I would like to say a landscape architect who can give me the picture, okay, what is going on in this organization? What is happening right now? What trends do we see? What projects are we going to launch in the future? If you have someone with that coordinating role, that makes all sort of investments in analytics and AI much better. Metadata is really crucial, and you all probably know very well what metadata is about. In this case, it could be a customer or an employee. We have a lot of details. Knowing this when looking at the data is crucial. And not only metadata about the information that is stored, but also about the context or the situation. What is going on right now, and why is this relevant? What is happening in other fields, etc. It brings love. And Seth also mentioned this, that you can create your metadata. You should have AI in the system tagging your data, and you can use advanced text analytics for that, looking at documents. You could use machine learning or AI tools to automatically detect the data that you have stored, even if you didn't notice. And I mean, that's the typical case. When you have a data lake, I've been working a lot with data from cars, semi-autonomous cars. And what you typically do is that you build a sophisticated model in the car that is continuously measuring the environment, adapting, and trying to behave well. That means braking when someone is braking ahead of you, staying within the lane. It's similar. And that's a continuous evolution. That system is continuously updated, but you still record the data. And once there is an upgrade of the system, the data recorded will change. And if you don't know when that change occurred, what did that change imply, you will be lost in doing the analysis. I have that experience myself, and it's terrible because you waste a lot of time. This is one way of detecting such differences. Let a machine look at the data and see if something has changed that could have been an update. And of course, this applies not the least to GDPR, but there are rules, there are methods of managing your information well. If we try to stick to that, things will go much better. So I think that's really valid. But this is a bit more my field, extracting the knowledge. What could it be like once you have that information in place? The most basic thing, a big data dashboard or a small data dashboard, seeing the information in some sort of structure, graphics, being able to do drill downs. This is what we all know as BI. This is nothing new. But you can also build products on top of this by just capitalizing on the information that you have and control it. Where do you want to go for eating? Or what we typically do is bring in text information from different sources. We have the metadata from the different silos or a place where everything is stored. And we make new solutions on top of that. In this case, you might search for someone who knows Katia at Torslanda outside of Gothenburg. And you end up with finding Anna, who works at Volvo Cars. And you also get some aspects, colleagues who knows her, who you can talk to, and her skills in different aspects. And this is something that you can generate with all the data you have within an organization. You can look at SharePoint. What kind of projects do they work in together? What comments does Anna write in different forums and similar? And then you can end up with this information. Another case, which we have done for SKF, where they work with an iPad to basically be able to, from the workshop, directly fetch all the relevant information regarding different products. And they can even use it offline on different places to basically capitalize on the fact that information has been managed correctly. And something I would like to share with you as well is the trends that we see right now. I mean, traditionally Finewise comes from a search-driven perspective, where we build search solutions like the one you saw. But the thing is that if you compare this with classic BI solutions, the enterprise search, there's a trend right now towards insight engines. You skip the search engines, you use an insight engine. In the same way as for classic BI, we talk about self-service BI. And these are basically both about extracting knowledge about information that you have. But the top one, searching, has always been directed to everyone. I suppose no one of you had any training before you started using Google. I was just there to use it, right? But with BI tools, classic BI tools, it was really hard to do. It was an IT project. To get something happen. It took 3 months. Self-service BI, you reduced it to 3 days. You just had to go to your Click or Tableau or whatever expert in the department and ask them to slightly direct your dashboard. The idea is basically bringing these together. Search-driven analytics is a field that is growing, that is coming now, where you work in the same way as you Google things, you just extract the information. But it all builds on the fact that your information The lower level is managed. And then the next step, transforming your business. Now we have the knowledge, right? We want to utilize that knowledge. I think a good example is from Google. The perfect search engine would understand exactly what you mean and give back exactly what you want. An example, this is a no-name search engine. I took out the logo. It's not Google. And we searched for Thai lunch. I was situated in Stockholm when I did this, and I wanted to go for Thai lunch. And looking at the results, this is my feeling. Okay, there was some recipe sites, and we have a Facebook site for Thai lunch in Washington, and other Yahoo recipes. Now we went to Google, Thai lunch. Okay, I got 3 Thai lunch places around the office. And they're all relevant. And if I didn't like them, I still get the results lower down here. And I mean, there's no secret. They use my IP to check where I'm located. And they basically just gave me the results I needed. And you can try different things. If you search for Gröna Lund in Stockholm, the amusement park, you will see you get the opening hours, you get the most popular tracks you want to go riding, and you don't need to go further. You just have the answers there. And I think that's the way we want to transform our businesses. And going back to the thing with an insight engine that I mentioned is basically a technique which is not a specific product. There are many different products for doing this that can handle all your data sources. It can work with real-time analysis. And you can work with machine learning, more sophisticated tools straight in there. It needs to be in there, as we heard. You can do BI similar things. It handles your access rights, GDPR compliant if you want to, and it scales for big data. But the thing is that it really benefits on the fact that you want to do analysis and you want to search in the same place, basically. And talking about changing your business or improving things, what we typically see as consultants is that people want to do things in labs. They want to get started. They want to try it out. And we heard the Scania example where you started doing a data lake, elaborating on this and seeing how it can work. How can we bring in those new open source tools? How can we bring in data scientists in our organization? How can we make that work together with the IT architecture we have, with the organization we have, with the regions we have, and what do we need to adapt here? I think elaborating on this is the best way of doing it. To gaining this knowledge and making it happen with that knowledge, transforming the business. And the 4th step, automating, looking in this crystal bowl or snowy bowl. I go back to this picture. I think we talk about AI a lot nowadays, and AI is nothing new, really. I used to talk about 3 phases or 3 stages of AI, where we go back 20, 30 years. AI was basically a tool where we built in our competency into an engine that worked according to given rules, or giving sets of rules, like, for instance, chess engines. And they were quite early, right? And you could play chess, I think, 20 or 30 years ago against the chess engine. And you were quite good if you won, if it was a good engine. And so that's like the first stage. We saw several similar solutions. They were really specific. They worked in one context. They worked for one specific solution. And they did it really good. So what you basically did in that first stage, you implemented knowledge, built a model, and you applied it for one case. The next step of AI that we see it as typically used today is more statistical models, and they are able to learn things. Deep learning is the best case where you actually train it upon data, and it then works in such a sense. It recognizes material upon what you trained it for, but there's no model behind really. There's just a deep learning network, and you don't know how it works. You can't go and ask a model like recognize this dog, is it or this dog in the holder, is this a scary one or is it not a scary one? If you train a deep learning model for that, you will get the result. It's probably not, or it's probably with some likelihood. But then you go to the system and ask, but why do you think it is? Well, if it could answer, it would just say, okay, I brought in the data here and I calculated some things and I got this result. It's not like I recognized that this person had a beard and he was walking in a certain way, because there's no model behind it. You don't know what is happening underneath. And there's a lot of research on that right now, how to make deep learning and other solutions or methods more transparent. But if you would look at the chess algorithm in the beginning, you could trace exactly why it chose to do such a decision. Because it was trained and it was rather built on a model that applied certain steps. And what we now see in AI in this area is that we are combining these two sets, that we build models using AI, basically. That makes it possible to combine statistics, which is more built on the data we have, with models that are implemented as rules, basically. And this will probably be the third step of AI coming up. And I think that's the interesting part, where a lot of things will happen and are happening right now. So looking back at this, we have those hierarchies. We need to make this happen before we can do those things. And I think that's really something to take home and think about it. We don't need to build this full pyramid at one step. We could just slice it out, do some parts of it. But if we're not doing the bottom steps here, we will never end up with a good solution for our daily use. And I think that's worth talking about. So some conclusions that I wanted to share with you is basically that what you need to build on a sound architecture. You need to manage your information, manage your organization, and make that information or that structure or that map available. Like maintain the big picture. Do we have, I don't know, how many of you do have a picture today, like a landscape picture of what is going on in your organization regarding culture, information, and similar things? It's hard. So I think that is worth working towards having that overview, at least that someone or some group have that possibility to say, okay, this is what will happen. If you want to do a connection to this system, you should be aware of this and this and that. Or it will probably be replaced in 3 years. I don't know. Metadata is needed to make analytics and more advanced things happen. And not the least, let your business priorities drive the development you're doing. Focus really on what is essential right now, what is happening around us, and where do we need to be number one. So that's what I'd like to share with you. I hope you got some thoughts out of this, and I'll be here for some questions. Thank you.